I lost my precious cat Sultan because I fell asleep. My mom shook me awake saying, I think Sultan is dead. The guilt is unbearable. Just days later, Einie fought for his life while I begged a vet typing into ChatGPT for help. Now I'm praying for Archie to survive. Hello, everyone's. I do not know where to begin as I am unsure when I started losing myself. This journey began long before now, silently like a loose thread on a sweater that is gradually coming apart. I continue to harm myself and I do not know how to recover or move forward. My life has come to a standstill. Everything around me comes and goes while I remain stagnant like that sweater slowly unraveling. On the 13th of April, I was asleep when my mother shook me awake and said, Wake up, I think Sultan is dead. I awoke in shock. Half asleep, I ran to the room where I found him lifeless, drooling with one eye open. All I could think was why I had fallen asleep. If I had not slept, I could have rushed him to the veterinarian or been with him in his final moments to make him comfortable. But the truth is, at that point he died alone, and I did not matter anymore because all I was left with was guilt. Let me take you back to when my cats were born on the 8th of February. It was supposed to be a beautiful memory. I could not be as happy for them as I wanted to be because 4 days prior, the love of my life left me. She abandoned me. Even though my cat giving birth was a wonderful event, I could not feel the joy I was supposed to experience. I could not even smile properly. The grief was overwhelming. 2 days later, the mother cat stopped feeding them, so I intervened with milk replacers. I hand-fed them every 2 hours around the clock. It kept me occupied and diverted my mind from my thoughts because I had to feed them every 2 hours. I stayed awake each night, the entire night long, just feeding them. During the day, I was asleep but would wake up every 2 hours to feed them and also had to wake up 5 times a day to pray. I was perhaps getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep a day at most. I was becoming exhausted. Mentally, I was becoming increasingly troubled. I was losing myself. It was not just the exhaustion, it was something deeper. I was losing my grip on reality. It was not solely about the cats. If anything, my cats helped me. They were like my companions. I felt happy around them. I genuinely felt great around them. I still do. It is just that being in the situation I was in, I was losing myself. I was disconnecting from reality. I was so busy doing inconsequential tasks, spending hours on chores. My life felt like it had stopped. I was already fading, already drowning in failures, and this prolonged pause in my life felt longer than it should have. Life was not progressing, it was simply at a standstill. Gradually, the kittens started to grow. We named them Archie, Sultan, and Einstein. I called him Einie or Ainu for short. I chose these names because of one of my favorite films, Back to the Future. I adored the name Einstein. After that, days passed. I fed them daily. I played with them every day. They loved me and I loved them. It was relieving to see them playfully bite my hands. They would be in another room while I slept. My mother would open the door and they would all rush to my room. Sultan would bite my hair and kick my head. He was the largest and healthiest, and I felt truly happy. They made me feel good about my life. I felt part of a family. Maybe the reason I felt this way is that I am an only child. I do not know. But life has a cruel way of reminding you how fragile happiness is. I believe all happiness carries within it the seed of its own ending from the moment it comes into existence. Then one day Sultan's stomach became upset. I gave him some flagyl. He was active, playing and running. Everything seemed fine. The next morning it worsened, so I took him to the veterinarian as soon as it opened. Since I had not slept that night, I simply waited for the clinic to open. He was still active at this point. The veterinarian administered an injection for his fever and one for his stomach. When I returned home, I stayed with him for an hour. He defecated a few times and all were watery, but I thought the medication would take effect soon, so I decided to sleep for a little while. I closed my eyes and the next thing I knew, my mother said, "Wake up, I think Sultan is dead, he is not breathing." I awoke in shock and ran to the other room where I witnessed the result of my negligence. He lay still, cold and lifeless. There was nothing I could do anymore but hold on to the regret of having slept. If only I had stayed awake, I could have taken him to the veterinarian when he was nearing his end, or perhaps I could have just been with him, comforting him in his final moments. But he was gone. We took him to the nearest park where I buried him. I returned home and he was simply not there anymore. He passed away on the 2nd of April. After Sultan, every morning felt like punishment and I did not know how to escape it. Whenever I would wake up with an intense heartbeat, I felt as though he was still here and that it was all a dream, but it was not. My baby was truly gone. Every time my mother shook me awake for breakfast or anything else, I panicked, fearing that another one was gone. It became a reflex, more like a curse. I remember this happening when she left. Every day I would wake up with a rapid heartbeat for a moment, feeling like it was just a bad dream, only to check my phone and relive the reality that she really had abandoned me. Then exactly on the 9th of April, Einie and Archie both developed upset stomachs and began passing blood in their stool. I took them to the veterinarian immediately. He informed me that it was most probably feline parvovirus FPV. For the second time in my life, I felt fear. The mortality rate of this virus is 90%, and this is what Sultan had suffered from. You might be wondering why I did not get them vaccinated. Well, there were a few reasons. First, I raised them myself and they were much smaller for their age due to not being on their mother's milk. Second, I had just dewormed them, and third, they had always been somewhat sick and the veterinarian advised me to wait until they were healthy before administering their vaccinations. They would get sick from time to time, but ultimately it is on me. It was my responsibility. I should have vaccinated them whenever they seemed healthy. They would still be with me now. Nevertheless, we began treatment. It was extremely expensive, but I did not care. I just wanted my babies to be okay. We started administering antibiotics, drips, and vitamins. We even used blood from their father to create an antibody serum. I read everything I could about the virus and followed all the necessary protocols. I put everything into saving them. I did everything by the book for their best chance at survival. However, my baby Einie continued to lose weight. He was gradually losing himself. I stayed with him in the room the entire night. I never left his side. His condition worsened by the day. He kept vomiting and I was there, cleaning it up and comforting him to the best of my ability. During this time, I observed and learned that presence, even in silence, carries significant weight. Even cats can feel the presence of someone. If I left the room, he would vomit more. He would run around even though his mother and brother were nearby. His mother was present because she was vaccinated, but her stomach was upset, so I did not want to expose her to the father. She stayed in that room. However, when I remained with Einie, he would vomit less. He would be calmer. He would occasionally look at me. He would simply be Einie, the adorable little creature that he was, my baby Einie. We then shifted him to drips, administering 3 drips per day. He could not eat or drink. He was losing himself. I was doing everything I could for him. Every drip, every injection, every moment he shut his eyes, every scream, every cry, I was there. But it was not enough. Now I will recount the last 48 to 72 hours I had with him. I did not sleep a single second. I was with him every moment. When he slept, I desperately wanted him to live because he was so loving. I truly loved him. I deeply loved him. One day it broke me. It was 4 a.m. and Einie lost responsiveness to touch. I rushed him to the vet, the same veterinarian who was overseeing his treatment. I made them open their clinic since they were not a 24-hour service, and I called repeatedly until they picked up and came to the clinic. Here is what broke me. Whatever I was telling him, he was on his phone. I had a suspicion about what he was doing, then I saw it. The veterinarian was not even trying. He was typing what I said into ChatGPT, asking it how to save my boy as if I could not do that myself. All he did was copy and paste my desperation. For a moment, I regretted bringing him to that veterinarian, but then again, life and death are in God's hands, not ours. He was at a point where I knew he would pass, and I had no money left to change veterinarians. I had spent everything I had on these treatments. Every last penny. Every favor, every drop of hope. That day, we completed his medication. I went home, knowing he probably would not make it through the night. I stayed with him. I remained by his side the entire night. He survived. The next day, I arranged for his drips and managed to get everything done. I returned home, but his breathing pattern had changed. It felt as though I was losing him. I was cleaning him every time he urinated or defecated because he had lost control. He was gradually becoming a mess. I kept cleaning and I was with him. Somehow he made it through the night. The next day I took him and his brother for treatment. We got them drips, medications, everything. I returned home and cleaned him over and over until I could no longer keep my eyes open. I do not consume coffee or energy drinks. Then, I slept for a short while because I had not slept in over 2 days. As soon as I fell asleep, though I should not have, I did. My mother woke me and said, "He is not responding anymore." Before she even said anything, I was halfway across the room towards him. I saw he was drenched in his own waste because he no longer had control. I was not there to clean him, and the dignity sheet beneath him, which absorbed some of his mess, had gotten on him. I informed ChatGPT of all his conditions. It replied that these were his final moments. I refused to believe that. I said, "No, ChatGPT, no. Please tell me what to do to save him." I did not want to lose Einie. He was my baby. He was so loving. He slept with me. He played with me. He loved me. I loved him. I just did not want to let him go. I did not want him to give up. He was fading, becoming colder and colder. But he was suffering. He was suffering every time I took him to the veterinarian. He suffered so much and it hurt me. It hurt me every time I saw him in pain. I sincerely wish I could take all his suffering away. I would do so 1,000,000 times over. I prayed, I continued praying. I asked ChatGPT for assistance. It suggested drying him first, then getting him warm, raising his body temperature, and preparing an electrolyte solution. I rushed to my kitchen. I grabbed a pan and started boiling water to pour into a bottle to keep it warm beneath him. While waiting for it to boil, my anxiety grew, so I asked ChatGPT and took him upstairs into indirect sunlight. I hurried back down, grabbed a pair of scissors and a towel, dried him, and cut away the fur matted with waste to make him comfortable. I quickly returned downstairs, prepared an electrolyte solution using honey and a pinch of salt, and returned upstairs. I administered it slowly, dropping it 1 drop at a time onto his gums. At first, he would not swallow, but slowly he began to. Each time he swallowed, it offered me just a tiny flicker of hope, and I clung to that. I rushed downstairs and fell, hitting my head and breaking my glasses, but it did not hurt. I felt nothing. My only thought was Einie. While writing this, I realize I might sound foolish, but I want to express it. I took him downstairs, poured hot water into a heating bottle, and kept giving him water. I kept cleaning him. At that point, I could not keep my eyes open, not even for a moment. But I stayed awake as long as I could. My body was giving out, but I stayed up, cleaning him and providing him with small drops of the solution while reassuring him. Hey, it's going to be okay, don't you worry. You will be okay in no time, and when you are, we will play. I'll give you so many treats, we will get you so many toys, and we will go on rides annoying everyone. I kept talking to him throughout the day. Eventually, I could no longer stay awake, so I slept right beside him with my finger in his paw. He was breathing very rapidly, and I woke every 10 to 15 minutes to give him the electrolyte solution and continued talking to him. I did this for hours. Then one time I awoke alone. There I was looking at my baby Einie lying there lifeless. He did not make a sound before leaving. All I felt was guilt. Guilt for the pain and suffering I caused him, every injection he received. Every cry he made, every moment of agony, all that guilt flooded back. I was responsible for all of this suffering just for my own selfish desires. Countless feelings surged within me and I could not bear it, so I cried. I know men are not supposed to feel whatever I was feeling, but perhaps I am pathetic. But I did cry. I felt alone. I felt vulnerable. I felt off. I felt broken. I wiped my tears before my mother arrived. I took him to the same park where Sultan was buried, and there I laid my baby Einie to rest too. Even though this short period was not long, I had been with these kittens for less than 2 months, yet it felt like I had known them for a lifetime. I loved them and I would have done anything to make them happy. But they are gone now. Afterward, I changed veterinarians. The new veterinarian is not as costly as the previous one, as I had already spent a significant amount on Einie and Archie. However, even though this new veterinarian is less expensive, he still seems highly qualified. We are following all the necessary protocols to save Archie. He is currently battling FPV as I write this. He has not lost any weight, but he has not gained any either. Now I will help him fight this battle, and I hope he survives. Because I love my cats, and I do not have much else going on in my life right now except for them. Even if I did, my cats are my family, and for once in my life, I do not want to lose them. I want them to stay. I hope Archie lives. All I can do now is pray. When I die, I want to be reunited with my friends, my baby Einie and Sultan. If you are reading this and have made it this far, could you please pray for the health of my cats? Thank you, everyone. Have great lives. Goodbye. Story 2. My boyfriend Alan can't let go of my past, even after I showed him I'd cut ties. Why did you add him back? He yelled, despite me deleting every male friend. His accusations haunt me, but I'm desperate. I need him to see he's ruining us. Will he ever change? I understand how this may sound, but please hear me out. This narrative will consist of a combination of what transpired and what I later discovered, so I apologize if it comes off as somewhat direct. My boyfriend, let us refer to him as Alan, 26 male, and I, 25 female, met in October of 2023. We matched on Hinge in September, but he neglected to reach out for a month until I ultimately decided to go over to his place. We instantly connected, despite him being somewhat of a player or whatever term you prefer to use. For a few years, I had been casually dating, not seeking anything serious and rarely staying in a relationship for more than a couple of months. Just before I met Alan, I met and briefly dated someone in the fall while still using the dating apps. I did not see Alan again until late November or December, and the only communication I had from him before that was a request for a nude photo. He was traveling for work, frequently going away for a month or two at a time. I ended my relationship with the other person at the end of 2023. Unbeknownst to me, before we met, Alan was still involved with his child's mother, several ex-girlfriends, and was in a relationship with one of those exes whom we will refer to as Jules at that time. I was not aware of this. We began spending more time together during the day, going out to eat and doing things like that in early 2024. Prior to that, our interaction consisted of late-night texts from him, to which I would always respond. He was working 60 hours a week while I was juggling 2 jobs, but we started to allocate more time to each other. Valentine's Day arrived, and he did not make any plans or exhibit much interest in the occasion, so I did not bring it up. That was around the time my mother passed away, so on that day I reached out to him, and I was surprised to find him home alone. I visited him, opened up about my feelings that evening, and began spending even more time together as I ended my other flings around that period. I desired Alan intensely. I recognized that I was in love. I was aware he was being promiscuous. I noticed earrings, clothes, or chargers moved to different locations. He would tell me he was going to his parents' or friends' houses and then nonchalantly mention in passing that he hadn't seen them in months, not even realizing he was contradicting himself. I loved him. I expressed my desire for a relationship, but he stated he did not want that. I accepted his position and told him I would wait, giving him a year. I started a new job that came with increased responsibilities, and Alan sent me flowers to celebrate. We began going out to dinner more often, not just fast food. He began taking me on dates. I confessed my love for him and he reciprocated, saying he had been wanting to express that feeling as well. Alan is strong, tall, handsome, fit, has a mustache, thick hair, and is charming, funny, smart, and thoughtful. We began developing a real relationship, although not an exclusive one. I even started telling my family about him and my friends were aware. I desperately wanted him at this point. I would bring it up and pour my heart out, but he would simply stare at me in silence. He never reciprocated my feelings and often met me with indifference or informed me that he was not ready to settle down. During that time, I genuinely believed he did not love me as deeply as I loved him, although I felt there were small signs that he cared. I was unsure if it was merely my imagination. Alan left in June for a job out of town for several months. He went on a trip to Mexico, during which I later found out he was with a girl he was seeing whom we will call Belinda. Things started to get a bit rocky. I became jealous and internalized it. I wanted to be his girlfriend. He broke up with me shortly after arriving at the job site. We began talking again and got back together and things improved, but the same pattern would occur again. I now understand that he was involved with someone when he arrived at the site and had actually met someone new in May, who we will call Morgan. He started dating Morgan in May and continued seeing her when he returned to town while maintaining contact. He ended up in Washington in July on a new job and was involved with 3 girls while he was there, one of whom was in love with him and almost relocated to Houston just to be near him. In July, I slept with someone else, which I absolutely should not have done. He was someone I had met years before and we would occasionally sleep together. However, he always made me feel terrible about myself for going to see him. I often used sex as a way to cope with my insecurities and self-worth, which ultimately chipped away at my sense of self. Things remained unstable. Alan's drinking spiraled out of control, and he began calling me a few times a week after he returned from the bars, sometimes cheerful, sometimes not. He would go off on tangents about various topics and become obsessive. He accused me of sleeping with a black man, something he has always fixated on for some unknown reason, even though I have never been intimate with a black man. I am white, Alan is Mexican, and we both grew up in fairly diverse communities, so his preoccupation with this is puzzling. Additionally, he accused me of being pregnant before we met and of having had an abortion, bringing it up several times. When he is intoxicated, he becomes nearly delusional, and he battles with antisocial personality disorder, which exacerbates his paranoia. I later discovered that he fixated on this issue because he has been involved in 6 abortions with past partners. I have never even had a positive pregnancy test. We broke up in September after I visited him. I resumed using dating apps and met the guy from the previous year a few times. Alan and I remained in a tumultuous back-and-forth relationship until November. Now we are catching up to the present. In November, he returned to town and we had an honest conversation that made me feel like he was ready to be together. He noticed a notification on my phone from someone on Hinge who had sent me a TikTok, and I decided to come clean. Alan is an incredibly jealous person, and I realized that if I wanted a future with him, simply eliminating my past connections would not suffice. I did not want a guilty conscience. I wanted him to be able to choose me authentically. I deeply regretted the moments I communicated with, sent pictures to, or slept with anyone else, and I desired a genuine relationship with Alan. I could not disclose everything at once because he was so enraged. He would ask me questions and I would freeze in panic, and when he later inquired why I had struggled to tell him, I simply did not want to hurt his feelings. I was afraid. I felt fear toward him. He would become so furious that his face would turn red and his forehead would swell from the anger, making the entire night unbearable. Eventually, I shared the names of everyone I had slept with, and he demanded to read through my entire phone. He then revealed details about all the girls I mentioned earlier, confessing that he had been involved with his child's mother, which cut me deeply. He told me that he planned to reconcile with his ex, Jules. In the ensuing month, he oscillated between calling me to express his disdain for me, labeling me a whore, and mentioning that he was out to dinner with some colleague. He tossed out all my makeup and cosmetics from his house and even got a matching tattoo with Belinda, who is a family friend during this period. This was while he was also with Jules. Remarkably, he covered up the tattoo a week later. As December arrived, things improved. He claimed he ended things with all the other girls, which, spoiler alert, he did not, and I made the impulsive decision to get his name tattooed on me. He proposed that I move in with him at this point. Although things remained tumultuous, he expressed a desire to make it work. Eventually, I moved in, but he continued to see Jules and Morgan during this time, maintaining full-fledged relationships while I was practically living in his home. Fast forward to now, Alan has access to all my passwords, my social media accounts, my location, and he essentially tracks my movements whenever I am not with him. I allow this, and I even go out of my way to notify him if I must go somewhere for work, and he requests a picture from the event I am working to verify my presence. I provide him with this information. I have caught him communicating with these other girls repeatedly, as recently as March. He asked me to be his girlfriend, and then a day later he texted Jules to try to get her to come over. I was living there at that time, so I am unsure how he would have proceeded with that. We had not spent a day apart for a considerable time. He would obsess over the notion that I was unfaithful, despite me consistently being able to account for my whereabouts, my texts, and everything else. I understand his paranoia and recognize that he will obsess over these thoughts. Today, the final straw was a situation on Facebook. I have removed every male friend I could come up with, and today he sent me a profile picture of someone I attended school with. While I was deleting male friends from Facebook, I remembered that his account was deactivated and that it would not let me unfriend him. I sent him that information. Alan responded by claiming that I had just added this new person since the individual reactivated his profile and we remained friends. It is important to note that we live in Texas, and I grew up in Georgia. This person was merely someone I attended high school with. We were not friends, and Alan has access to my Facebook login to verify everything. I showed him that I did not just add him recently but had done so in 2013 while I was in middle school, and I removed him from my friends list. Alan continued to blow up with anger, refusing to acknowledge everything I presented, insisting on maintaining his viewpoint despite the clear facts of the situation. He then began dwelling on something that had occurred a couple of weeks prior. What transpired a couple of weeks ago, someone attempted to add me on Snapchat. This was someone I hooked up with twice both times before meeting Alan and whom I briefly added back on Snapchat last year. I had attempted to delete my entire Snapchat account months ago because Alan had an issue with me having one, but ironically, Alan also expressed concern about my deleting it. Therefore, the major wrongdoing in his eyes was that someone tried to add me on Snapchat, and he was furious that I did not inform him about this person. He continually obsessively labeled me a whore, and I am unable to endure it any longer. I have done everything possible to show this man that his idea of my unfaithfulness is entirely misguided. Our relationship last year was fraught with complications, but this year was intended to be serious. I have been the perfect girlfriend to Alan. He has faced many challenges this year, both at work and personally, and I have supported him through it all. He has subjected me to a lot, yet he refuses to open up to anyone about our situation. I desire to provide him with insight so he can recognize that it is not solely my fault. He is damaging both our relationship and his own mental health. I feel overwhelmed. I love him, but I need him to change. Reddit, please offer him advice. I told him I would post this and share his feedback so he can understand that I am not malicious. He is simply burdened with guilt and projection. Story 3. Moved 8 hours to pursue a relationship, only to uncover my partner, F33, is still married and her ex is controlling. I can't keep living like this, she says, but I'm drowning in bills and isolation. Can I find a way back home before it all collapses? I understand that this story is lengthy, but I will do my best to summarize the key points and details. If anything is unclear or requires additional information, please feel free to ask. I am in dire need of support and insight. I simply want to regain control of my life. Back in August, I began to develop a routine and felt that I was starting to make some progress in my life. While not everything was positive or perfect, I found myself socializing more, using social media and talking to friends. However, my therapy sessions had become somewhat stagnant. I had been seeing the same therapist for about 4 years, and we ultimately concluded that I might very well have borderline personality disorder. I am currently attending school and working towards a degree while also running my own Etsy shop. Although my shop is doing well, I still struggle significantly with my mental health and often barely manage to get by some months. I even needed to ask my family for help with bills. One of my biggest challenges was forming in-person friendships and relationships. I frequently felt isolated and without friends to spend time with, which was detrimental to my well-being. I recognize that I have made some less than ideal decisions, but throughout my life I have lacked support. This person had created an impression that they would finally fulfill a gap I had been desperately trying to close for years. I apologize if I omit any details. The last few months have been overwhelming, and I am trying to keep this as concise as possible while providing the essential information. Please feel free to ask questions. I am sincerely seeking support and insight. My life feels like a complete mess. In September, the person I am currently with messaged me on TikTok. After chatting for a few weeks and playing video games daily, I started to develop an interest in them. We began conversing, and both of us were eager to pursue a relationship. I understand the honeymoon phase and similar situations. Beyond that, she possessed many qualities I had been searching for in a partner. We seemed to be more compatible than I had ever been with anyone before. She was able to offer things in the relationship that I never thought I would acquire or felt worthy of having. Although she lived about 8 hours away, my lease was set to expire in November. Before inquiring about moving 8 hours away to be with her, I visited twice. Both trips resulted in brief meetings, the first time for a few hours and the second for about an hour. As time passed, more and more things felt off. For instance, she wanted me to move in with her but could not yet because she had 50-50 custody of her child and was not allowed to have males spend the night. Even during my visits, I could not come to her house because she did not want her ex unexpectedly showing up. Ultimately, I went ahead with my plan to move to be closer to her. I found an apartment near her and signed what I believed to be a 7-month lease. The moving process was chaotic and completed in nearly 2 days. I was initially very stressed about the situation, as I had previously struggled financially, but she assured me she would help if I encountered any issues and that her job provided her with more than enough income to assist me, so I proceeded with the plans. I had a family member help me move, and I toured and signed a lease all in the same day. Initially, I had requested and thought I signed a 7-month lease that would expire in May. However, upon checking my documents online, I discovered that it was actually a 13-month lease. Since moving, I have uncovered many details that explain why everything felt off regarding my partner. It turns out she was still married to her ex. At the time we met, he had been telling her that he would divorce her, marking the second time he made such claims. She had already been served divorce papers, and shortly after meeting me, she signed a reconciliation agreement, although they were still living separately. He assured her that if she agreed to this reconciliation, he would stop drug testing her, as their earlier custody agreement permitted him to do so. Yet she believed him when he indicated that he was continuing with the divorce process. She communicated to me that she did not think I was serious until I relocated here, which is why she agreed to those terms. After moving here, she was waiting for a court date set for February, hoping he would proceed with the divorce, only to discover that he was not. By that point, he had started living in the house after her vehicle broke down and was deemed a total loss. He believed that they would work on their marriage while I was led to believe she just wanted to escape but stayed solely for her daughter. Most days, we were not physically together. Instead, we spent time on the phone. She frequently discussed how abusive and controlling her ex-husband was, as well as how poor a husband he had been. I could understand why someone would want to leave a relationship like that, but she lacked the support and resources to make it happen. In January, she lost her job, which she suspects her ex had a hand in, as he held a position of authority over her in the company they both worked for. Since then, she has been unemployed. Fast forward to March, her ex grew frustrated with her leaving the house during the day, which he knew about due to security cameras, and going out with another male. He went through her phone and discovered all the messages exchanged between us over the past few months. That day, she finally decided to leave him. By that time, I had grown weary of the turmoil and trauma she had brought into my life and was planning to meet with my therapist the following day to discuss a plan to relocate back home. However, after learning what had transpired, I went to pick her up, and she has been with me since. Throughout all of this, I have spent holidays and important events alone, and I have lost and cut off most of my friends due to the instability of my day-to-day life. I want to revert to some aspects of what I had before, but without the isolation and loneliness I experienced. I hope to return home with the person I am currently with. This brings me to the present, the area where I feel I need the most insight and support. She is now staying with me and has yet to file for custody or divorce. Her ex has expressed a desire to mediate the process with her. While she has agreed, she has stated that she does not feel comfortable meeting him in person and wants to conduct her portion virtually. He has refused and continues to insist on an in-person meeting, demanding that she attend alone, claiming that if I were to accompany her, I must stay in the car. Since her departure, he has contacted every member of her family and friends. Some friends have sided with her, blocked him, and shared what he has been saying about her. Meanwhile, individuals such as her mother and brother have appeared at odds with her. Before she left her home in March, her ex made it very clear that he would do whatever it took to deprive her of all her support systems and ensure he was the only one in her life during their argument. Since then, he has made significant efforts to accomplish that, and he has managed to undermine her relationships with her mother, brother, and best friend. At this point, she has little trust in or care for her relationships with them, as none of them have even attempted to consider her perspective. They have treated her as though she is experiencing some kind of mental breakdown. She has very limited support outside of me. While she knows a few friends in other states, I am currently all she has. I am uncertain about what to do anymore, as any plans I had for returning home or getting out of this lease fell apart when she came here. I care for her and desire a relationship with her. She has had a difficult life and was with her ex for 10 years, so I can somewhat comprehend her clouded perception of the situation. However, I want to assist her in getting back on track, help her secure her thyroid medication, find a therapist, pursue ADHD medication, as she has been diagnosed but never treated, obtain employment, arrange for her divorce, and establish custody. But she is struggling, and any support I attempt to offer seems ineffective. It has been just over a month since she left, and she reached out to a few lawyers who claimed to offer pro bono services, but subsequently sent her documents with upfront fees of a few $1,000s, which she cannot afford while remaining unemployed. I am experiencing a mental breakdown daily as I try to manage all of this. The toll of the past few months has been overwhelming. At times, I was barely able to get out of bed or take care of myself. I am still trying to balance school and my Etsy shop, and it has become quite a challenge when it is just me. Now that she is here, she has stated that she would start working and had a job lined up with a company. But the day before her start date, she was informed that she had previously been placed on a non-rehire list for that company, and they would attempt to resolve the issue. I have depleted all my savings and no longer have a reliable income from Etsy, as I allowed that to fall by the wayside, and I have bills due at the beginning of next month, leaving me feeling that my mental health is on the verge of collapse. She lacks the drive or motivation to address these matters and is hoping her ex will file for divorce so that she doesn't have to incur legal fees, while I need to return home by September for classes. She strongly reminds me of how I felt before I began taking ADHD medication. I keep trying to motivate her to take action on most days, but it feels like pulling teeth and I am slowly declining mentally. I will reach a point soon when my rent and other bills are due and I will not have the funds to pay them. I am almost at that breaking point, if not just a few days away, and I do not know what to do anymore. I want to return home. I have a job there with a family business and can attend my classes, and although I was not doing exceptionally well before, I felt more stable at that time. She has expressed a desire to move back with me but does not take any steps toward addressing her situation with her ex so that we can make that happen. I am honestly terrified of many possible outcomes regarding this situation, and while I acknowledge that I have made some poor choices, I simply want to go back. I care about her and want to help her improve her life for herself and her daughter. I do not want to abandon her without assistance, but I feel uncertain about what more I can do at this point. I should have mentioned earlier that in October, I applied to transfer to my dream school and found out in December that I was accepted after having applied 4 times prior. I truly did not expect to get in. What types of resources or support can I seek to return home and escape this situation? I see a therapist weekly, but I do not feel a connection with her, nor do I believe that merely seeing a therapist will resolve this situation. Story 4. Married my best friend only to discover her entire life was a web of lies. I had to marry you to keep me safe, she insisted, while manipulating my love and trust. After 2 years of deception, I found strength in its unraveling and reclaimed my life. How could I have missed it all? This is rather long, so bear with me. Some people know most of this story, but almost no one knows the entire situation except for my ex and me. I am not seeking advice, I just wanted to share it completely. My ex-wife and I am now 37 years old and she is now 36, met at a geek bar at the beginning of 2018. I relocated from Georgia at the end of 2017 and did not have any local friends after the move. I met her and her then-girlfriend there and we ended up becoming friends. There was a group of us. I would host parties and game nights. We would all meet up at the bar in similar places. I dated a man for 2 years, but we had a really nasty breakup. He stalked me for a year afterward. By that point, she had become my best friend, and when I started dating again after my stalker, she confessed her feelings for me. She basically told me she had loved me for years. Over time, she spun a tale about how her current girlfriend was abusive and awful. Consequently, she broke up with her and moved in with me because she had nowhere else to go. I later discovered that much of the negative information she provided about her ex-girlfriend was not true. Around that time, she introduced me via text chat to one of her longtime friends, whom she had mentioned on and off for a while. The friend and I really connected friend-wise. She said all the right things and had similarly traumatic life experiences for us to bond over. She initially used the term friend and then friends to gather information from me about herself and to encourage me to consider a relationship with her and see where it could lead. She was the friend. In the beginning, we were supposed to be polyamorous. I was dating her and a man. She used these friends to manipulate me into getting married when COVID-19 happened. One of the friends was a doctor and shared horrific stories about people without insurance dying untreated in hospital hallways and how her mother was terrible and would just unplug her. We could not simply establish a medical power of attorney because they had done that once, and the mother contested it in court and won, doing as she pleased. Therefore, if I wanted her safety, I had to go the extra mile and secure the position of next of kin. At that time, I loved her and she was my best friend. I could not fathom having my best friend suffocate and die in a hallway because of something as simple as lacking insurance. So, even though I really did not want to get married again, which she was aware of, I did it to ensure her safety. She fabricated people with entire lives, connections, Facebook profiles, and experiences involving these individuals. There were pictures of them from years back, including childhood moments. I cared about them and developed relationships, friendships with them. This charade continued for 2 years. They supposedly spoke daily, both on the phone and through video calls. Yet whenever I pushed to video chat or talk or visit, there were excuses, delays, and so forth. When I insisted too much, those friends conveniently began to die due to COVID-19. One passed away by suicide after I had agreed to give up rights to my troubled, mentally ill child, calling me a terrible mother and wife. I literally wept and mourned for people who never even existed. She also suddenly no longer wanted to be polyamorous after we got married. It was either them or her. At that point, I did not want to lose someone I loved and my best friend over a man I had been dating for a few weeks, so I ended it. I tried to convey that I felt hurt and manipulated, but she faked a seizure, which ended the conversation along with several others afterward. Anytime I said anything that upset her, she would fake a seizure, so I learned to tread carefully. I discovered as her story became increasingly outrageous that there was nothing to corroborate her narrative. I snooped on her phone and found all the other profiles she was logged into. When I confronted her, her excuse was that we were all logged into each other's accounts in case someone was locked out. That was when I truly began to investigate. The doctor did not exist. Nowhere. The lawyer friend did not exist either. Every person I had supposedly spoken to, whom I had pictures of, lacked any evidence of existence. I checked everything I could short of going there personally. Once I gathered all that information, I confronted her and she simply admitted it. She said, "Yes, I did that." But she also claimed it was my fault because one time, during the period when I broke up with the man I dated before her, I spoke to someone else. Therefore, she felt she could not trust me, so she lied initially, then just continued doing so. She exploited this situation to traumatize and manipulate me throughout our entire time together before the confrontation. She gathered information and influenced my thoughts and behaviors. There were times I had to leave work early due to supposed occurrences. Many medical emergencies turned out to be trivial. There were purchases made because of her difficult life, which she claimed justified them. There were nights she kept me awake all night over this insanity. There was a supposed inheritance with continuous complications. She even invented a teenage daughter whom I agreed to take in, only for her to tragically die. She was an absolute nightmare. During this time, she also convinced me to pull my children out of in-person school and enroll them in virtual schooling, which she would supervise. However, she failed to do so during the first year, resulting in both of them failing. She did not drive, so I had to miss work for all her many medical appointments. I missed work for emergencies that ended up being inconsequential. She was the stay-at-home partner, yet I managed all the chores, cooking, cleaning, shopping, and working. She mostly stayed in bed. I did nurse her through a back surgery during that time, which was the only legitimate medical issue she had. There were entire weeks when she would only leave the bed to use the restroom. She would scream at us to fetch her things from across the room, just a few feet away. She would decide she wanted something, a new vape, a gaming console, a game, a computer, accessories for the computer, or new clothes. If I said no, asserting that we could not afford it, she would cry or become manic until I capitulated just to make it stop. She arrived at my home with one dog and left with four. Throughout the duration of our marriage, the longest she maintained a job was 2 months and the shortest was a week. She held maybe 4 jobs over 3 years but was primarily unemployed. At times, between my 8 to 5 job and my side hustle, I worked over 120 hours a week. I took loans and hardship withdrawals from my 401k to cover everything. Previously, I had very limited debt and a credit score close to 800. Now my credit is ruined and I almost lost my home. A few weeks after the confrontation, she had the audacity to tell me that I was being dramatic and that it was time for me to get over it so we could return to normal. I tried for a year after learning the truth to move on but could not. Everything I felt for her truly died. I finally requested a divorce in October of 2023 and she moved out a few weeks later. She continued to lie about the most trivial aspects of life, such as jobs she did not have or a new girlfriend, while I attempted to remain amicable for the sake of obtaining her signature on the divorce papers. It took threatening to take her to court for a contested divorce over all the marital debt, plus filing fees and court costs, to get her to sign 5 months later. She spent 1 month alone insisting she mailed the papers and had no idea where they ended up. As soon as I received the signed papers, I completely ceased communication with her. That decision was the best thing I had done for myself in years. Towards the end, she became so controlling that I could not speak to anyone but her. I could not go anywhere but work without her. I could not express joy or sing without being yelled at. The first time I was able to go to the grocery store after work without facing a reprimand, I cried. I am now in the process of getting my life back on track financially. I have been in therapy, lost 100 pounds, and work out regularly. Almost 2 years later, I have an amazing partner. He treats me like a princess and is exceptionally kind, supportive, and gentle. And I am no longer living a nightmare. Story 5. My LDR boyfriend is the one I can't live without at 20, but my past scars keep haunting me. After 2 breakups, I'm terrified he'll leave again. You can always count on me, he says, but what if it's a trap? The uncertainty is suffocating. Will I be blindsided again? I have depression, autism, and obsessive-compulsive disorder. I have been experiencing suicidal thoughts since I was 13 years old, and I have an anxious attachment style. It feels as though I am leapfrogging from one person to another. First, I lost two friends who were dear to me. Losing them made me realize that I was naive to believe that true best friends exist. Second, I placed my trust in a therapist who ultimately abandoned me. Thirdly, I distanced myself from my aunt because I was in so much pain, and now I cannot imagine my life without my boyfriend. I find myself needing a lot of reassurance even though nothing seems wrong. I feel as though I am too much, and I am afraid I will push him away simply by needing him too much. Sometimes I discuss these fears with him, albeit without going into specifics, and at other times I tend to keep them bottled up because I fear driving him away. When I do express my feelings to him, he is sweet and assures me. However, I find myself repeatedly needing that reassurance. It is not the first time I have felt insecure with him. While his reassurances do help, I still find myself requiring them more frequently, and I worry that he will tire of it and of me. I remember that as I grew closer to my aunt, I harbored a deep fear of her abandoning me because of, well, me. I would ask her to promise me a million times that she would not leave me. I believe that fear or obsession contributed to the therapist diagnosing me with obsessive-compulsive disorder. It seems that this obsession has resurfaced for some time now. I do not know how, but over time the obsession gradually faded away. One of the obsessive thoughts I experience is, what if he stops loving me? One of my compulsions involves constantly seeking reassurance, such as repeatedly asking for promises. Part of why I have this fear stems from our history. This is not the first time we have been together, it is actually the third. The first breakup was mutual because I needed to calm myself down during a tumultuous period in my life. The second breakup took me by surprise, he ended the relationship and my suicidal thoughts escalated. Then we became friends with benefits, and after about 2 months he informed me that he had found a girlfriend. A month passed where we only texted 2 or 3 times. Then he texted me saying he had something important to share. He missed me. He mentioned we could be together without her knowing, and I told him I wanted to be with him but would not do so if he was with someone else. As a result, he ended things with her, and this has been the longest we have been together, almost 8 months. All of this occurred within less than a year. We found each other in November 2023, and we officially got together in August 2024. The first relationship lasted about a month to a month and a half, while the second lasted approximately 2 months. Furthermore, it is a long-distance relationship. We have not met in person yet. He is in Europe and I am in South America. He is 25 years old. Last week, during one of our calls, I discovered that he started studying Spanish about a month ago. He says he wants to say sweet things to me and that he needs to meet my family soon, which is why he wants to be perfect. It truly amazes me that he is learning it. You know what I mean? Now we are calling each other every week. On Tuesday night, he mentioned that he would not have Wi-Fi the following day since he was going to stay at a friend's house. I said that I would miss him, and he said the same. I must admit that I found the lack of Wi-Fi strange. Couldn't he ask his friend for it? Perhaps I am just exaggerating, being dramatic, or overthinking. I am not sure what is going on with me. Last night, he texted me saying that he did not stay at his friend's house because his friend was having problems and he said he missed me. I informed him that I watched a movie, after which he sent me a good night text because he was tired. I had hoped we could talk at least a little, you know what I mean. It made me sad, I felt something and it hurt. My immediate response was, oh okay. I understand truly, but we had not heard from one another all day and yesterday was a long day for me. I felt insecure. I know he meant it when he said he loves me a lot last night, but still. Perhaps he didn't miss me as much since he was having fun. I am an age regressor, and about a month ago we had a conversation where he expressed his desire to be my caregiver. Sometimes he calls me little one, and when I ask him to tell me a story, he does so. My mother is unaware of my age regression because she is completely opposed to it and insists that it is not normal. I do not plan to tell her ever. I am anxious because last week, my boyfriend told me that he needs to talk to me about our calls, stating that it is not entirely good or bad but somewhere in between. I feel extremely anxious. I fear that it may be something significantly impactful since I am very sensitive. Before he mentioned wanting to talk, I was already crying intensely in my room because I could not handle the uncertainty surrounding many things. That occurred on Saturday, today is Thursday, and we are still communicating. I fear that I may end up crying, I do not know why. I feel like I am suffocating. What if this is the breaking point where everything begins to fade away? I am terrified that if the day of our breakup comes again, I will not see it coming and will have to endure it completely and utterly alone once more. I remember that a few days after our second breakup, I watched Corpse Bride. The day after viewing that film, I self-harmed after being clean for months. About a month ago, I told my therapist that I have a boyfriend. She responded with such understanding and I feel relieved. Finally, I can discuss my long-distance relationship with someone. Perhaps he will tire of me. I do not know, and we have yet to talk about what he wants to discuss regarding our calls. I have experienced the same obsession with my therapist and my aunt, but it has been more pronounced with my aunt. I am exhausted and this situation is so confusing. I do not want to experience the same things with him again. What if I let my guard down again and am blindsided? That is what happened with that therapist and with my boyfriend during the second breakup. It is not the first time I have heard, "You can always count on me, I will not leave you," etc. What if this is a trap? What if I am still naive? What if opening up is a mistake? What if I believe those words and end up hurt because I was foolish? This is not the first occurrence and something tells me it will not be the last. Just when I feel safe, bam, I do not want to fall for it again. The uncertainty is consuming me. I am so scared that sometimes it paralyzes me. I cannot breathe. I feel as though I am going to explode at any moment. I cannot endure this any longer. What is happening to me? What is wrong with me? I feel like I am freaking out over nothing. Last night he said that he would talk to me today, so I sent a text saying, "Hi." He is online intermittently and he has not reached out until now. Before writing all of this, I was literally panicking. I cannot live without him. I apologize that this is so disorganized, but if you have made it this far, thank you for reading.